So you're writing a story. Could be a novel, could be a short story, movie screenplay, D&D campaign, video game, whatever it is you're writing or trying to write, you're stuck. You got nothing. You're staring at a blank page. So today let's talk about going from a blank page to a finished story. And there's two basic ways that I've found to go about this that functions. The first is starting at the beginning and writing straight through to the end. That might be the intuitive way that we think about how story writing works. If we go, well, we start reading a book at the beginning and we finish at the end, that probably is how Stephen King did it. He just pulled the chair up to his kitchen counter, grabbed his pen and a notepad, and started writing. Away he went, and before too long, he had a novel. I'll tell you first off, that is a very challenging thing to do. It's probably extremely rare that you can write a whole book that way. Don't beat yourself up if writing that way is something that you find very difficult or you find lots of roadblocks and stumbling points along the way. If you end up with a lot of writer's block writing that way, you are not alone. That is a very challenging thing. But it can be very fun to try and to make progress doing that. The way that usually works, as you start writing, you might have some idea for a book. I want to write a fantasy, I want to write a sci-fi, I want to write a thriller, a detective story, whatever it is you're starting to write. You have a scene, you start with your characters, you start building your characters, and just like an audience member, as you start getting to know the characters in your story, you start understanding their true motivations, their wants and fears, their likes and dislikes, what they really want to get out of this situation, and you'll be thinking about these characters and these situations as you go throughout your day, as you drive to work, as you cook breakfast, whatever you're doing, you'll be thinking about those characters. And when that story evolves and sort of comes out of you, it can be as much as of a surprise to you, the author, as it would be to the readers. So long as that story stays true to what the characters would be doing. So, if you're writing a Philip Marlowe detective story, and the scene takes a turn, your character has to do something that, your protagonist has to do something that would be honest and true in the character of your protagonist. Um, and so long as the words coming out of their mouth and the actions that that they undertake are honestly what your fictional character would really do, it can lead you to some fantastic and exciting places that are unexpected. A lot of times, writing is stilted, and as audiences, as viewers or readers, we find writing to be bad writing is when a character is made to do something for the service of the plot or for the service of the story that isn't really in keeping with what that character would do, right? Sherlock Holmes has to solve a mystery by using a bunch of evidence that he finds. He has to sort of be collecting that in his head and have a turn at the end where he reveals everything. He's got to kind of brag about it and explain it to Watson. He has to sort of reject a supernatural explanation and say that it was this real evidence and there was a real perpetrator that caused this. It wasn't some mystical ghost that came out of the wall, as other characters are maybe thinking. And we know how Sherlock Holmes would solve a mystery. We know what he would do next, and we know what would be very out of character for Sherlock Holmes. And the writing that strikes our ear as wrong or bad is oftentimes writing where the writer, the author, is contriving situations and making those characters do things that are out of character, that aren't in keeping with what we as the audience understands those characters to be. Once you understand your character, that character takes on a life of their own, and they sort of do things on the page that you didn't know or weren't expecting, even as the author, and that can be very fun and exciting. That's one of the most rewarding ways to write is you know in your heart of hearts what's in your character's heart of heart, and you kind of let them happen. You let the action happen. You let the dialogue happen, and it's true to the character. And that can be some of the fun writing, the most fun writing to do, and it can be some of the most fun writing to read. It can be very, very challenging. The second form of writing that I've found to be functional for myself is the plot outline and fill in. So if you have a plot and you say, I got this great idea for a screenplay. There's going to be this big purple guy from space, and he's going to come collect a bunch of magic stones, and he's going to fight a bunch of heroes, and these things are going to happen along the way. You can kind of go, okay, this is the big bad guy. This will be the final battle scene. It's going to start off here. I need a couple battle scenes in the middle or some action points. This guy has to be driven away from this, and this character has to rejoin here. And you can kind of schematic flow chart your way through. And these are much easier to write because you only need one point to start, right? Bad guy attacks, this army attacks this fort. This navy runs a blockade of this other navy. Whatever it is, right? This space explorer finds a new planet. And all you got to do is write that on a page. Explorer finds a new planet, and you put it in a little box, and then you go, what happened before that? What happens afterwards? What's happening alongside that in a parallel plot? And then you can go parallel to that, back on Earth. Back on Earth, there would be his former partner is developing a ship to compete with him. And you put that in a box, and you go, okay, so this guy found a new planet, and this guy's developing a ship to compete with him. I can see how this will arc over and eventually meet. And you fill in this schematic outline view where you have boxes and arrows and these characters moving over here. And that can be really fun to write. And you can always add more to that. You don't need to have the entire thing worked out all at once. And those are much easier stories to write because you can take those little pieces and write them as standalone chunks. So you can have that box where you say, Space Explorer finds a new planet. And you can go, that's a chapter. Is that chapter going to be in the beginning of the book, the end of the book, the middle? I don't know yet. Is most of this going to take place supporting that and developing towards that? Or is this going to be the sort of origin of the story and things will develop from here? I'm not quite sure in my mind yet because I don't have that schematic entirely filled out. But I can start writing that little piece. And you can fill that in. And that's a great way to make a lot of progress on a story. And if you keep doing that and you keep adding to your schematic outline diagram, and then you keep writing in those little chunks, you keep adding detail to them, before too long you've got 100, 200, 300 pages of story written, and you really only need to fill in little gaps and details and connect dots to make it a polished story. So those are the two sort of fundamental ways to write that I have found that work well for me. If you find yourself in the first one where you're writing along, or maybe even the second one, you're writing along and you don't really know where to go next. You don't know what to do next. You want to make progress, but you don't know where your story is going. You just have a classic case of writer's block. You sit down, you open up your laptop, you shut off, you take your earbuds out, you shut your phone off, you're ready to write, you're focused, you had your cup of coffee, you got your notepad next to you, you're ready to go, and blankness. There's just nothing in your brain because you don't know where the story is going. That's okay. You can still write in your story. And I'll tell you how. Take one of your characters. Doesn't need to be the protagonist. Can be, but it doesn't need to be. Just any character. And write what they're doing, write what they're doing specifically with the intent that it not make it in the story. Write something that character is doing on a day or in a place that does not participate and will not make it in your final draft of the story, right? So Captain America will play a big part of this story where he, fights our giant space aliens and whatever. But for today, that big story is going to take place later, and I don't quite know how that goes yet. For today, I've got some writing to do. I want to be creative. I want to get to know my characters better. What is he doing today? He's visiting a high school to talk to some young people and encourage them to recycle. He is traveling to Congress, to Washington, D.C. to testify on behalf of something. But he's not testifying today. Today he's just traveling. He's got to jump in his tour bus or his airplane or whatever. Today he has the day off. What's he do on his day off? What a interesting thing to write. He wakes up early, goes for a jog, goes to the gym, cooks some bacon and eggs, whatever it is he does, he calls, calls friends and family on the phone, writes some letters, works on his memoir. Um, Write what your characters are doing that isn't part of the story. Write what your characters are doing, knowing what you're writing right now, the things that you're putting on the page, have no intent of going in your final copy. And that has no pressure. There's no wrong answer to that. It doesn't need to be good, so to speak. It doesn't need to drive your story forward. It won't be read by anyone. It just is there for you to get your fingers warmed up on the keyboard, for you to have your character be more real and more filled out, and you will understand your character better and your world better, and you'll know more about what they're really wanting and doing, and what their fears are and what their wants are, and their motivations. And you will understand your characters better, and you'll understand the time in your story better and your story world better, and you'll be much more prepared to make contributions to the end product, to the artwork that is your final goal. So not all the writing that you do needs to or should be part of the final draft. The metaphor that would be appropriate for this is, if Van Gogh or Da Vinci is going to make some fantastic painting, they're going to do a lot of sketches. They've got their pencil out and they're going to do a lot of erasing and then redrawing. And what does this character look like from over here? And it might be a portrait of Mona Lisa from straight on. Why not do a couple of profile shots where you get a side view from this side, and what does it look like from over here? And what's on the other side of the room? When Vermeer is painting Girl with the Pearl Earring, what is she looking at? Maybe he's doing a sketch of the rest of the room. Maybe he's turning around and looking at the other side going, what's back there? I'll do a sketch of that as well, and filling in this space. And you go, well, why would he be painting the wrong thing? Why is he painting or sketching something that's not going to be ending up on the canvas at all? Well, what that girl is looking at in the painting might change what the look on her face is. It might change how the light is reflecting on her. If she's looking at an adorable puppy versus she's looking at a relative who's passed away at a wake, the expression on her face will be subtly different. And the artist who's making that artwork will have a deeper understanding of that if they've taken the time to stop and look and think and go, what is this portrait, this side profile of this young girl? What is she looking at? What's over here, just off the canvas, that the audience can't see, that the viewers and readers can't see? And taking the time to think about and explore that space that isn't going to end up in your story, will get you to understand what will be in your story better. And I think that is a very valuable way to make meaningful progress on your writing, even if it doesn't contribute to your overall word count or your overall page count just this one day. Right? Tomorrow, you'll have a much better position to make your final piece better. Or maybe even today. Maybe you start writing what she's looking at, and it makes it easier just then to start writing something that you're going to include in your final piece. So those are just some ideas about how to go about writing, some strategies of how to start with a blank page and end up with a finished piece of artwork. Let me know how you guys write. Let me know what you do when you stumble, when you find some writer's block and you have nothing in your head and it's just a blank page and it's blank behind your eyes and you got nothing going on. It happens to all of us. I sit down all the time and I go, boy, I thought I had an idea. I got nothing. What do you guys do there? Because the more we engage in this conversation, the more we talk about this, the more we fill in these details, the better all of our writing is going to be. So tell me about what happens when you guys get writer's block or your process for writing in the comments. And thank you guys very much.